Recording.
Would you like to indulge yourself with Yahoo? No, what is it? Yeah, Yahoo Answers questions.
Personally, I used to do like Yahoo questions where I would go on and answer, or Yahoo Answers or whatever, and I would like answer people's questions and whatnot, like about, maybe it was Magic the Gathering, maybe it was RuneScape back in the day. But like there's like a lot of people that ask like personal questions, like relationship questions. But so I saw a little article like 27 hilariously dumb Yahoo questions that'll make you cringe. It's the worst ever, and I was like, some of these, like you were like saying, like you swear I have to be trolled. Like this very first one, James Russell, I swallowed an ice cube whole and I haven't pooped it out. I'm really scared. Is it stuck?
Okay, so clearly that is just somebody having a go, somebody having a joke, because that nobody really.
You don't believe that like somebody could be that stupid?
Yeah, no. Like if you have the ability to ask something on Yahoo Answers, no.
Was it like Jessica Simpson? Is this really chicken? Did you see that whole thing?
I don't know.
You know how like you can get tuna in a can and it's called chicken of the sea?
Yeah.
And there was that famous thing. I think it was Jessica Simpson. It was like, is this really chicken? And
right, and it's tuna.
Yeah, it's tuna.
Right.
But and then recently there was like this thing on Reddit where I felt really bad. Like the guy, it's like a husband and wife, but he's like basically making fun of his wife because his wife asked the question. He asked the question to his wife, like, if you were to travel 1 hour,
no,
and you were traveling 80 miles per hour,
no. It wasn't his wife. This was two like high school girls in a car, and maybe you saw a different video than I did, but she was asking the other girl, if you're traveling 80 miles an hour in a car, how long does it take you to go 80 miles? And she had no idea. She was like, I don't know. And she was just like really stupid. And she slowed way down. She was like, okay, if you're going 80 miles per hour, how long would it take you to go 80 miles? And like the girl didn't get it for like 3 minutes.
So maybe what happened is maybe that like came out as a video or something, and this other guy asked his wife the same question.
Totally possible.
Yeah, and yeah. So I don't know. I've seen a lot of people do like really like answer really stupid questions. So the whole if I swallowed an ice cube whole and I haven't pooped it out thing, like,
come on.
I don't necessarily believe that like somebody could be that stupid. There's no. Is there a spell to become a mermaid that actually works? I'd like to know if there's a spell available to become a mermaid. One that works. I'm asking people that believe in mermaids. Don't say that mermaids don't exist, because I take it very seriously and find it offensive. Please find a spell. By the way, I'm a witch. Can I safely look at a picture of the sun? I know it's bad to look at the sun, but what if I took a picture on my phone? Would it still ruin my eyes? Now that I could see like some stupid person asking.
Right. The whole mermaid one, that's like maybe, okay, you've got like some teenage girl who's wrapped up in her own fantasy and, she's being stupid.
It's like one of those things where like you have to wonder how many of these things are just people trolling the internet, because like they're so bad.
Yeah.
Today I was walking down a street and there was an ant on a puppy, so I stepped on the ant and killed it. A police officer gave me a very dirty look, and so did a lot of other people. So I was wondering, is it illegal to kill an ant? I'm super serious. This isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Is the Hunger Games based on a true story? I was watching the Hunger Games. Is it true? Like, did it happen to the Nazis after World War II? I could see a 9-year-old asking that question.
I'd be really interested in, like, for one, the age group of the people asking, and two, if they meant it. Like, because most of these are like, it definitely seems like they're just, screwing with you. Screwing with the internet. Haha, this is funny,
I know there are autographs of Babe Ruth and John Lennon and George Washington. Are there any autographs of Jesus Christ that are either on eBay or, on people's houses?
Oh, wow.
Are there birds in Canada? I'm thinking of visiting. I might bring my camera, so I'm curious to know if there are any birds. I know they have moose.
Okay, that one, come on, that's a joke.
Yeah. Why does my cat vibrate? Her chest always vibrates like she has worm or something.
Uh-huh.
Is it normal? When she vibrates, she makes tiny little noises and scare me because it doesn't seem normal. That seems like either
That's a
a
joke.
7-year-old asking that question or,
Yeah.
somebody trolling the internet.
I mean, obviously, that's what's going on. But wait, I have a question for you. The name of the article was like, "You won't believe these 27 questions asked by Yahoo Answers." So is that a BuzzFeed article you're looking at?
No, I don't know what it is.
Where are you finding this crap? You must be searching dull parts
I
of the
don't know
internet.
how I found this. Like, I think I typed in like Yahoo questions, right? Because I was thinking, maybe we'll do some like what are the two things? Like it's would you push the button and either or, right? I either
Yeah,
or.
we
I
did that. I have some bad news for you. Okay, so the listeners don't know this, and will never know this, but we played a game where we went we were together in the same room, and we recorded a podcast where we played this game called Either Or or Would You Rather. Basically, there were two different sites we were going off of, and we were just like clicking on a new random one and then talking about the implications, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and it was great, but the file got corrupted pretty much immediately into our recording. So after about I started
oh
editing this, right? And after
yeah,
about 5 minutes, the like sound quality is just
atrocious.
drops dramatically. And I spent probably 30 minutes trying to save it.
Oh, that's sad.
This is very sad. I've had a few frustrations lately with some recording things. I've tried to get one of our episodes up on YouTube, and it failed twice. And the third time took forever. And then I edited half an episode, saved it. Okay, that was fine. I edited the other half of the episode, and it took much longer because I cut out where Ben was basically rambling for like 5 minutes of it. And so I took out that whole area. I like made it sound good and nice and clean, and you couldn't even tell.
Right.
And like I lost like 2 hours of work. And so and there's on top of that, before that, about a couple weeks ago is when I was trying to edit that episode where we did the Would You Rather. And
Yeah, right.
I've just had some moral defeats when it comes to the podcast, and I was like, okay, all right, I want to get back in it. I want like a season 2. So this is like episode 1 of season 2. And I'm gonna get the other one out tonight, even though it's the second time I'm editing it. I'm gonna get that out tonight.
I know. Like when we were first starting this, I was like, "Are you sure you're cool with editing?" And you're like, "Yeah, I could do it." And I was just like, "Wow!" Like, 'cause like, yeah, editing is really it's way
It's hard.
harder than
It's super hard.
it's way harder than what you would think about if you've never done editing before. It's like a nightmare of like tedium and really stupid like errors that crop up that end up turning into really big time consuming problems where
Yeah,
you're
you
just
don't
like,
think about it for sure.
yeah,
Because what will happen is, all right, you'll say something that maybe doesn't fit the conversation, right?
yeah,
And I'll cut it. But then either you or I will refer to it later in the episode.
yeah.
And then I have to cut that out. It's like a bad problem. So typically, how much of a time you have recorded, it's going to take, at least for me, it's been taking about 3 times as long to edit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I care about the quality of this, and so that you listeners out there, you 15 people who are subscribed, I want it to sound good, and yeah. So, but yeah, I'm getting back on it. We're back in it. Everything's good. We both of us have been producing content lately, or working on content if it hasn't been public.
Yep. I've been doing my video let's play. I haven't done any of my video blogging or like any of my book reviews.
I've found video blogging really difficult. Maybe it's just the self-consciousness in me, but like or maybe it's that I really want, I know what good content is, and I know what good quality content is. And
Right.
so if I record myself, even if I spend on a 3-minute video, I spend 30 minutes editing and cutting and, making it look good, I'm still super self-conscious about it. And I end up being like, nope, screw this, scrap it. It's all bad. And I just can't put it up. So that's what happens to me when I have video when I
I don't know.
vlog.
I have like you went back and like watched like some of the old videos from like John Green and Hank Green. Like there's the thing where you can get better, and
Of course you
there is
can.
something that they're saying that like the product and the brand is you. So it's one of those.
Yeah. It's hard to feel like a product or brand. I'd rather make the product or the brand where I'm part of it. So, and this is what you've been doing as well, is basically we've been playing games, we've been doing Let's Plays and putting them up on YouTube and Twitch. Twitch, for those people who don't know, I'm assuming you know what YouTube is, but Twitch is a streaming service where you record, not exactly record, but you stream yourself playing video games, and people like to watch and comment, and it's fun to do that because it's like you're playing with a stranger almost, or watching a stranger
Well,
play.
it's just like like even if you don't decide to post any of it, you can just basically say, I'm going to be playing this game anyway. If I just stream it, I can get feedback. People can crack jokes, make fun of me. I'll just
Yeah,
make fun of them. Like we can
yeah.
have just kind of like like you normally do if you were sitting on a couch with somebody playing a game or something. And there are a lot of people who do like watching games. I like watching games, so some people are like only really want to play them, and some people only really want to watch them, and it works out pretty well either which way.
Well, the reason I like to watch them is because I don't have all the money to spend or time to spend
Right.
on video games, and a lot of video games that I watch I don't own. They're cut down to a time where I can watch the entertaining bits without having to actually spend the time playing. And there is definitely something to playing video games that you can't get out of watching them, of course.
Yeah.
But it's still fun to watch, and there's people that produce content really regularly out there that I like to watch.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, you've been super regular about your content.
Yeah, I've been trying to like be pretty regular about my content.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I will get to the end of an episode and be like, oh man, I wanna watch more, which is a really good feeling to have in your viewership.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you'll come out and do it, put out another episode 3 days later. So that's been great. You've been doing Shogun 2.
Yeah, my new Let's Play is a where I play as Yusugi Clan in Shogun 2, the original. There's a couple expansions, but it's a grand strategy game. It's top-down strategy, if you guys aren't familiar with that sort of thing.
And I've never really played top-down strategy before, ever.
Yeah.
And I've never even really watched it. And so it's been interesting.
Well, a lot of people are like familiar with Risk, but of course Risk is kind of boring in the sense that like all you do really is you take dice and roll to see whether you are going to take over a territory. And a lot of the top-down strategy games like Civ 5 or Total War or EU Forts, that sort of things, like make it a little more involved, add a lot of historical context. I actually really like it because like I've watched like Total War games like Rome 2 and stuff like that, and it'll tell you a lot about the time period and what kind of like clans were there on the Iberian Peninsula, and the people who ended up fighting Rome, like the Persian Empire, the Saracens or the Saracens.
So you'll actually, get to
Carthage.
learn history while you
Yeah, I do really
watch the
like
play.
games. I like video games that you do end up learning something. Like even like the old school like Civilization games where you have a tech tree and you get to think about, yeah, okay, I guess refrigeration was invented kind of later. Like that's sort of a new thing, really. I mean, they didn't have refrigeration like 300 years ago. So,
Right.
or like we've had the discussion of like what time period do you want to live, and you'd be like, well, it would be really cool to live in the medieval ages. Like some people are like, let's go back to the medieval ages, and you have to realize that they didn't really have sewer systems back then.
Yeah.
So like they just threw it out on the street or like had it.
Well, what you told me, that's not even the worst part of going back in time. You felt like the worst part of going back in time is that you would then feel responsible to try to give what knowledge you have of these things to people. And like really...
Well, I just feel like if you went back in time and like they learned that you were like from the future, they'd ask you a whole bunch of questions like, well, what's warfare like? Like or how do you guys like make money, or we just got some new crops from the new world, and is there a good way to like actually raise tomatoes and like
And,
kind of crazy shit
yeah,
like
well,
that.
some of this stuff that you're not even gonna know because you
Oh
don't
yeah,
grow tomatoes and you don't like. You're not
yeah,
a
right.
plumber. You don't really. You have some basic rudimentary knowledge about that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
know how to make aqueducts. Under the ground. Like
There's a point where your expertise like really like fails.
it
Like
sounds
oddly
awful.
enough, I kind of feel like I'd be able to maybe make a refrigerator, but I don't know if I'd be able to make a pump.
Right.
And like an industrial, like an internal combustion engine would probably be on me
And
also.
the fact that
And
that someday that they could, humans could have those things makes it really sad. You're like,
well, it's
oh,
like if you
toilets.
went back, like if you went back in time, you'd be like, oh, you know what? I kind of just want my drink to be cold. Like, so I
Seriously.
want like a refrigerator and like things you'd miss. Be like, well, it's winter. It's 6 o'clock. I guess I'm going to bed because it's dark out, and I don't really have the money to like.
Yeah.
I went through last month. I went through 30 beeswax candles, and I really just can't stand the smell of tallow candles. And so I guess I'm gonna go to bed this month at 6 o'clock when it gets dark because there's no such thing as electricity.
No, I think that's like that's low on the totem pole, man. What's gonna be up there is like toilet paper, toilets, hot showers. Those are like the top things. Food, instant food.
It would suck to like be in a world where like people didn't really take showers like 3 months to a year. Like that was like the average time that people take showers, and you'd be
Yeah.
like, you couldn't ask for like a glass of water, and even like the ale that you ordered would have floaty bits in it, and you'd be like, what the hell is
Another
this?
thing is sewers. Like they, dump their sewage in the streets in
Yeah, they
most
dump it in the
areas.
streets and then in
This
the
is
river.
just yeah, no. You don't want to live at any time. Okay, there's a YouTuber I listen to, Hank Green. I've maybe mentioned him in the past, and he's got this song, and it's like, sometimes people ask me of all of the centuries, which would I pick to live in? Well, right now, if you think objectively, if you like hot running water and memory foam beds and TV
Yeah.
shows and cell phones and not being dead, then you love science. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a song and it basically medicine, like anything you can think of.
It would really suck to go to like some of back like in time, like even places in Arabia or Europe, and be like you'd have to worry about being killed as a heretic. There's no like, well, I don't really believe what you believe. You can't even get out of that way.
No,
It's
you
like,
can't. You can't be like, no, you can't say that. Are you Christian? Oh, yes, of course. That's what you have to say. Otherwise,
right.
off with your head. So
Now, what's odd is that if you had to go back in time and you had to act like, you've been a believer all of your life or something like that, you could probably get away with it because you could probably feign illiteracy and then be like, well, my preacher just reads all of because I mean that
yeah,
for hundreds of years actually, like it's kind of like one of those conspiracy theories. It's like it's a past conspiracy theory. Did the church actually want people to be illiterate so that the pastors and the Catholic priests would be the people who communicated God's word to the populace, sort of
I
thing? And
honestly
so,
wouldn't be that
oh, I have
surprised.
no, I don't know. It's like one of those things, but it would be one of those things where like, yeah, you could probably feign a belief in Christ that was like really like fairly uneducated, just under the thing of like, oh no, I'd have never actually read the
I
Bible
have no
because
idea.
my preacher and my priest just he says the holy word and we take lessons from that.
Why is it that I have this weird, maybe this is a totally unfounded belief that for some reason I having the knowledge of the internet and the world that we live
Yep.
in right now, that I would somehow be a better actor than most people back then? Is there a
I
reason?
don't know.
I'm thinking like my exposure to lies and like being skeptical and like that would help me in acting. I don't know. Maybe that's not true.
I don't know. I mean, you kind of have to wonder, like, how much were people frank and how much were they,
Well, people are people, and so people are gonna lie.
well, it's
But
like it's like if you read like a lot of the works from like the late 1700s and early 1800s, like they had a very good command of the English language. Like, you know, the great writers and everything like that, like were pretty much amazing writers and everything like that. Especially like a lot of the like political or social writers at the time. So we have like kind of dumbed ourselves down as far as like the written language and things like that.
Yeah, because of ease of communication. Like, it's easier to communicate with fewer words most of the time.
The public's understanding of like different things like science and everything seems to lag behind about 150 years. Like most people have a fairly good understanding with things like electricity or refrigeration, but quantum mechanics we haven't really, that's not really into the popular the stream, although a lot of people are just aware of it because people like PBS Nova, and they like watching the educational channels. And so it's interesting like how much probably better educated, like general education, people are now than they were in the past.
Much more. And my thought on it is that it would be exponential, especially with the internet and information that gets spread so easily.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, where like you do believe in like the power of the internet and like its ability to affect change. I don't know if I have that sort of a faith. That I just look at it as just a different tool, and people have to be willing to utilize that tool in their lives to actually go towards progress, and not just look up 27 hilariously dumb Yahoo questions and read up on Justin Bieber or look at the new Amy Winehouse documentary.
Well,
you have to. It is a tool that you
okay.
can use to actually dumb yourself down, right?
Sadly, I've been exposed to this idea that I kind of wish I wasn't exposed to. But the idea is that eventually we will discover how to make a digital world so much better than reality that we will just choose that. And
right.
This is actually, what's funny is we've talked about it in with our Ready Player One in our podcast.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize that this is like a thing called the Fermi paradox. This is why aliens haven't visited us. It's because if you can make your civilization good enough to be like impossibly awesome computers, well, not impossibly, but incredible computers that can compute amazing things, and basically they could tap into your perfect like human monkey brain needs. Right. You would never leave it. That's the idea.
That's not directly linked to the Fermi paradox, but it could explain the Fermi
paradox.
Right,
that's what I meant. Yes. The Fermi paradox, for those who don't know, is why haven't aliens visited us? They've had plenty of time. There's plenty there's got to be them out there because there's just so many chances for that to happen.
Yeah, mathematically, it's fairly likely that aliens exist. So if aliens exist,
that there are some that have been around much longer than us.
Yeah,
and
it's likely.
So why haven't they visited? Because no, they haven't. Yeah. Don't even start. Don't even start internet. Aliens haven't visited. I know you have your wishful thinking, but.
Well, maybe they have. There's just no proof. So it's just like one of those things. You're just like,
it's irrelevant then.
It is irrelevant because it's not something that is. It's not going to affect generation after generation. I actually feel really things about. There are some things that are like that could possibly be like this, where even things that are real that turn out to be irrelevant because they get lost in like the hubbub. It's like things that are important to history that didn't get recorded to history. A lot of like tribal nations that only use the spoken word. Like once you go past like 24 generations, like the oral traditions of like whatever are going to be kind of lost, just because if they don't get recorded and written down, like there's no way to like propagate that information into the future. It's interesting that there's entire cultures that have existed, and this also works for like, think about like pop culture Europe 14th century. There was some guy back there busking on the street 14th century who obviously wasn't any Bach. He was doing his own thing, but that guy was awesome. And everybody in your town knew that busker, and he like made an awesome living. But he didn't play to the nobles, he played to like
his
just
own
John
rules,
Schmo.
And he basically made the community so much better. because he
Right, yeah.
wanted to. And yeah, that's awesome.
But because the people who were recording history at the time were nobles, we remember Bach, but we don't remember the busker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And it's like, it would be interesting to like know, like if like Native American culture, if Native American culture had actually been written down all the way back to like, the time of the Maya and the
Man,
Aztecs,
that'd
like
be
where they
so
didn't
cool.
why they didn't just record, who had kings or what rituals they performed, but if they actually recorded like different things that were going on as far as like we're thinking about invading this nation, or like there's this really cool new poet that's raised on the scene, or we think that we have discovered a cure for sleepiness. It's like all these different things that maybe we've never thought of like before, and they were thinking about like alchemy. It didn't necessarily just have to exist in Europe.
No, it
There's a lot of
didn't.
people that could have been like, oh, there could have been a Native American 1,000 years ago is like, I want to change dirt into food. How do you do that? But that kind of stuff wouldn't be written down because it's all prehistory, or rather, not in the style of history.
Well, what I keep thinking of is you mentioned, people probably basically have the basics of how electricity and refrigeration worked when they didn't back in the 14th century when our excellent busker existed. Well, I have to admit that I don't really know how refrigeration works. As far as I know, it's magic. You plug your refrigerator into the wall and it makes cold. And I'm assuming there's some kind of moving water or chemicals in it. But I'm like, how does it generate cold? I have not the slightest idea. What? How does that even happen? I understand why it happens on
Like, do you
Earth.
want me to explain it, or?
I mean, maybe briefly.
Okay, so there is a refrigerant, and it's not water because of the properties of refrigerants, and you can do it with water, just like if how if you release air from a can of air, the can of air will get cold.
Yeah.
It's because you're taking something that is compressed, the air, and when it expands, it's basically at that same energy level, but it's dispersing it over a wide area, so it feels colder, right?
Okay.
So it's the way that, like, if you take any sort of air and you compress it, all that energy is going to just simply be in a smaller space. So that means it's going to be more energy dense, which means it's going to feel warmer. That's what happens when you compress.
Okay.
Compress volumes. If you
It
go
gets
through
hot.
expansion, it takes whatever energy it has and it disperses it to a greater space, so it feels
Okay.
colder.
So they found
what
some
happens
way
in your
to put that in
refrigerator?
a refrigerator.
What happens in the refrigerator is there's a refrigerant, and they compress it, and then they basically let it cool off, which is why sometimes the back of old refrigerators will feel warm. It's because like it's cooling off in that process, and then it goes through a nozzle which expands it, which is obviously on the inside, more towards the inside of the refrigerator, and so when it goes through its expansion, it basically cools the surrounding air around it, and that's how a refrigerator works.
Humans are amazing.
Well, it's like I really like refrigeration, and like light bulbs are something that I think we definitely take for granted. Like we really take electricity for granted. And
I dig light bulbs. I dig refrigeration for sure. Like, I'm super happy that we have that. Okay, so you were explaining this to me. I can obviously get it, right? But
yeah.
Okay, so this other podcast I listen to, pretty famous, called the Rooster Teeth Podcast. They are creators of Red versus Blue.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, so I regularly listen to this podcast, and something that they do frequently is if they think it's something dumb that's new, like Twitter or like Instagram, they will say, and you say something about it that sounds really odd, like, I'm gonna tweet this pic, okay? They'll say, okay, explain that to a caveman. So they have this kind of like running joke thing where they say, explain this to a caveman. So like, I'm like, okay, explaining refrigeration to a caveman. So first you're like, do you know what pressure is? And they're like, no, I don't know what that is. And you're like,
right.
Okay. So you have to like start at such a basic level to even get, and a lot of the times they just say, magic. It works by magic. So.
Yeah, so many of our things in our lives are like produced by magic. Like the ones that really bother me are the Reddit ones. Explain to me like I'm 5.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and they'll say, "Explain to me like I'm 5," and they'll ask like a complex physics question. I'm like, okay, I can actually see that possibly being broken down, right?
Uh-huh.
But then they do something really stupid. This is what they really do stupid. They'll be like, "There's this social problem. Explain it to me like I'm 5." You know, and you're just like, there's no way to explain a social problem as simply as if you were 5, because it's made up of as adults. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying? It's
but
like
the
a whole big
spirit of
problem.
that particular subreddit is explain this to me in a way I would understand it because I don't know anything about it. That's really the spirit of it. They just say explain like I'm 5.
I think that the experiment of the spirit of the Explain to Me Like 5 has sort of been broken into what would be a very human desire. And this, I think, is a huge problem in our culture. And so if you are part of this problem, we all are part of this problem, so don't try to get away with it. It's that humans really want and love simple solutions to problems. Like, we
Instant
love simple
gratification,
answers.
is that what another way to say it would be? Instant gratification, where you're just like, I just want the solution now, and that's simple, just give it to me.
I think it's very much in the same strain. I don't think it's necessarily. I would say, like, if you were speaking like of a genus of animal, it's in the same genus. It might not be the same species, you know.
Okay, yeah.
If the two get together and fuck, they can, however, create some really terrible children. Though, when you want the instant gratification and a simple solution, you're like looking
You're
at
like, that's really
George
bad.
W. Bush, maybe. Um, like you really get like the worst when you have somebody who, give it to me now, and I want it to be simple. You know, like when you get those two things together, you're just like, oh man, I want ketchup, but I don't want any sugar in it. I'm sorry, all of our ketchup has sugar in it. You're just like, well, I want ketchup without sugar in it. All right, I got some tomatoes in the back. You can go pick those and turn them in tomato paste and like boil it down and get rid of all the water, and then maybe
Yeah.
you'll get something. But this doesn't taste like ketchup. That's because it doesn't have sugar in it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, well, this is just a problem with Reddit in general. Actually, I don't know if you've seen recently, but Reddit has kind of been falling in on itself.
It's kind of interesting, like the initial innovative sort of intellectual pursuits do end up falling to like kind of like the lowest common denominator. It's kind of why I don't support a lot of those things that basically service the lowest common denominator in society, because like the lowest common denominator in society, they're really stupid, ignorant people who suck and only care about shallow things. So I'm not like necessarily be like, oh yeah, let's be all one happy family as humanity and like be all inclusive. I'm just like, no, let's like basically make them, you know, if they want to come join us, like, you know, have them join the crowd. Like,
That's not what the issue is here. I agree with you. And Reddit, just being so popular is gonna be a kind of a cesspool sometimes. That's
yeah,
such a good term.
cesspool.
So visceral. Cesspool.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
but
is.
no, what happened is Reddit has been petitioning to have the interim CEO step down.
Oh, I haven't read that.
They fired a really important community admin
Okay.
who ran the AMA section, the Ask Me Anything section
Yep.
of Reddit.
Mhm. What were the reasons of his dismissal? Does anybody know?
Her dismissal. No, they don't. It's private. But she was very loved by the community, and she did her job very well, as far as anybody could
Right.
tell on this side of the internet. And it basically shut down 4 or 5 really popular subreddits, like Ask Me Anything, and they closed them.
Really? Like they
They
didn't just
went well.
they
In
didn't
a,
go
in a
they didn't go they
temporary
didn't
way.
put it in like a historical archive or anything.
Well,
They
in
were
a
just like,
temporary way, they went, this subreddit is private. You can't come here until we figure out the problem, until we can find a solution to this. And Reddit got mad, as a huge mob tends to do, and they are very. The CEO has done sketchy things in the past, and so Reddit is very upset at the moment. I tend to avoid those major areas of Reddit. I tend to stick to the subreddit Minecraft. That's like
Right, yeah.
where I spend 90% of my time on Reddit.
Yeah, I think the subreddits are like just better and higher quality and everything like
Yeah,
that.
if you don't go on the front page, if you go and you look for what you're interested in,
You have to kind of dig. You do have to do a little bit of work.
Yep, you do. And if you find your niche and you find a group of people that care about the thing, then you can have a really good time. But it is kind of a cesspool, and I've been stepping away for a little bit. I've been just working on my own projects and things.
Yeah.
Nobody knows this who listens to the podcast and doesn't know me, but I got a new job a little while ago.
I guess that would not be necessarily public information.
No, it's not. Which is great. I don't work for a corporation, which I'm really happy about, and I make more money, which I'm really happy about, and my job is really low key, which I'm really happy about, and so I bought a new computer, and I'm not recording on that computer because my mic is terrible. That's basically what it comes down to. Anyway, yeah. So I'm super happy about that.
Have you just thought about getting like a headset combo?
Like you have?
Yeah. And this thing's like a $15 deal.
That's true.
It can work out very well. It can be terrible, but
Well, I'm probably going to keep them separate. I'm probably just going to try to upgrade my mic to a better mic. I tend to not like the over-the-ear headphones for very long, just because it's weighing on your ears and it can be irritating. I typically listen with earbuds. I do have some really nice over-the-ear headphones that I use while I edit, and if I'm wanting to listen to music or podcasts, I typically will wear them. But for computer use, I just do little earbud thingies. And got anything new going on with you? Have you got any moving plans in the future?
Well, we're looking at it, and we have some things that need to get done with the house. We got our driveway fixed, and then it wasn't really a permanent solution, and it still looks terrible. And of course, when you go to sell your house, you want to have a lot of
cool stuff. You're like, hey, look at this. This is cool.
Right. You basically want to sell eye candy to, whoever you're looking at. And we've already established like some things. Like we obviously like flowers, and so we have dahlias and we have gladioles. And the good thing is that we got those established like a previous year. So the first year that you do that stuff, like they tend to die out and they don't look very well. But like our dahlias look amazing, our gladioles look amazing, and I went through a couple last years and took some bracken ferns and went out in front of the yard and posted those. And of course, as soon as you transplant those things, they die. So it's a good thing I did it last year, so they look nice now. But we have to replace a driveway, and that's going to be like $2,000 to $3,000.
Well, you weren't really explicit, but you're thinking about moving, right?
Well, it was one of those sort of deals like where I don't really know if I want to talk too much about like the business end.
No.
But we had a series of clients who were basically bidding on some projects, and we were bidding on work for that project, and it's a big project. It's like a community infrastructure project. It's like $1 billion project that's going to last like 11 years to do. And so, when you bid on it, you're like, okay, well, what are your chances of winning the project? You're like, okay, well, 10 or 20%. And so we knew that for a while there we could possibly be moving, and we happened to win the project. So that means that we will have the work. It just means that now we have to move. And I did not want to move because I didn't think the house was ready and everything like that. Like
ready to sell, yeah.
Well, it's just like the previous owner like kind of had a hodgepodge of stuff, and like a lot of like the stuff that he did to maintain the house was pretty half-ass. And it's kind of like buying a light bulb, right? You go to buy a light bulb, right? You can buy the $4 iridescent light bulb. It's cheaper, but it's going to last like 2 years and then burn out.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, do you buy the CFL? Well, it's great. CFLs are supposed to last for like 15 or 20 years, but there is a bit of a scientific problem where ballasts don't tend to last as long as the component parts. So, and CFLs usually they work on vapor mercury, so they have disposal issues because mercury is a toxic chemical. So it's like okay, well, do you go for the sale longer lasting things? Like, okay, well, do you spend $20 for a light bulb and buy the LED light bulb? It has a little bit of the same problems as CFLs in the sense that it uses a ballast to convert AC, which you get out of your socket, to DC, what light emitting diodes run on. And $20 for a light bulb is a pretty big investment, especially But it's like, do you want it to be done in a half-ass way, or do you want to just basically buy your light bulb and have like the most efficient thing possible for as long as possible? Like, you
Right.
can basically half-ass a lot of solutions, but if you do it right once, you might not have to revisit again for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of one of those people where, like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it once,
And
and
be
like let it,
done.
like, I want like long design life, right? I don't want to deal with it for another 20 years.
Makes sense. It might
Right.
cost
So
you more in money and time now, but yeah, it's gonna save you. It's like actually, if you live your whole life this way, it's probably just better, you know.
it would actually be better for society. For instance, like the whole, like, our driveway, right? It's asphalt. It's coming apart. Water gets under it. It could be undermining like the foundation of our house, right? It's one of those things where, like, you don't want water against the bottom of your foundation of your house, and then we have water under our driveway. So do you spend just $400 to get the asphalt kind of patched and fixed? Or do you spend $3,000 to just pour concrete and get the foundation ready? $3,000 is a lot more than 400, you know?
Right.
It's a factor of 10
But
almost.
then you might be saving yourself $10,000
Yeah,
down the
you might be
line,
saving yourself $10,000. It's why, like,
or
I tend to
forty
encourage
thousand
people.
dollars, right?
Right. It's then why I encourage people to, like, buy houses, is because, yeah, buying a house is really sucky, and it's like expensive, and it's a really big commitment. But the thing is that if you can get it paid off, you won't be paying $30,000 in rent per year.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a big boon to your prosperity. But it is one of those things where you're just like, it has to be right for you. You have to be ready to commit to that sort of thing. There's a lot of things, right?
I don't think I pay $30,000 a year in rent.
No, you probably pay more like 24.
No, even if I don't just think about my own self. If I include Maggie, because we split rent, our rent is $9,600 a year.
Yeah,
Still,
that's not too bad.
it's 10,000. It's not too bad, but like still, if we did put that money into a house, see the issue is like we're so not there yet.
Right.
we don't make enough money, and we also want to basically travel, and you need money to do both to have a house and to travel, and you like. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to do both at the same time.
Well, it's like if you commit to a house payment, that means that money that you have to have that money. It's just like,
Right.
and it's good. A house payment could be, it's typically more expensive. Well, it's not. It's actually cheaper than rent per square foot. But if you get a little dinky apartment, you can basically have usually money left over.
Yep.
But actually, it's crazy that, like, I think it's crazy that people will pay like $1,800 to
A month.
$2,100 to rent a house when,
Why would you do that?
especially if they're doing it for like longer than 5 years. It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
But yeah, there's a lot of things around the house that I need to get doing and get done. And
That sounds like a lot of fun. No, just kidding.
Like,
that doesn't sound fun at all.
we used a flatbed truck to get like 3 yards of dirt, which is basically an entire. If it was a regular truck, it'd be the entire back of the truck, like,
Filled up, yeah.
of dirt. And I shoveled that off. But because I mostly just sit in front of the computer most of the time, and I am not super active, it means that basically what happened is I like strained my shoulder, and I like inflamed a couple of tendons in like the rotator cuff, and apparently that takes like a really long time to heal.
Wasn't that a little while ago though? Like,
Yeah, it was like 2 months ago. But apparently, if you give yourself a bad case of like tendonitis or something like that, it can take like 3 or 4 months to recover, and it still like causes me problems. So that's good reason to stay active and go to
yeah,
the gym.
I was gonna say good argument for exercise.
Yeah, it's a good exercise. Yeah.
I switched from a fairly active job to a very sedentary job. And when I'm at home, I'm sedentary too because my world is in a machine, or a lot
Yeah,
of it is.
computer.
And
Yeah, I'm the same way.
of course, I get out and I do stuff. And on weekends, sometimes we go hiking or we'll go for a walk and stuff. But like, that's not really exercise, where my previous job, I really did get quite a bit. So yeah, I'm starting to feel the effects on my body. I'm like, oh gosh, I really gotta start doing something about that.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's just one of those things that, like, you probably do, like, for anybody who is in their late 20s, I would suggest, like, to keep active and maybe think about doing exercise, just so that, when you're in your late 30s, you don't have, your muscles start saying, hey, you haven't used me for 10 years, and now you want to, like, build a shed or pour some
Right.
concrete, and we haven't done that stuff, so we're going to revolt
I had a really weird realization the other day about getting older.
Okay.
It's we've talked about the moment you realize you're an adult. But I think that there is not any kind of clear divide. When I was a kid, I would be so confused as to why Mom, are you spending so much time looking at this paperwork and like writing things down and like numbers? What? I mean, I don't understand. That's not fun. You know,
right, yeah.
That's like my thought. It was like, that's not fun. Why don't you want to do fun things? Okay. Yep. But then as I got older, I've had this realization lately. I've realized that stuff is fun. And you might be thinking, wait a second, taxes aren't fun. Going to work isn't fun. Okay, well, that's sort of true. But you have to think about what those things actually let you do.
Yeah, accomplish as far as freedom and stuff
yes,
like that.
you get things by doing them, and that's really fun. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to work towards something, and it's way more fun when you're working towards something that you deeply care about. But it's still kind of fun when you're working towards just a general benefit to you, even if that thing kind of sucks. So like I would tell my kid self, it is fun. And just,
it's a big matter of perception, That being said, I tend to look at like my filing cabinet, and we have like a filing cabinet table. And every time I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this is what adult life is all about. That thing is filled with papers that have everything to do with our life, our mortgage and our house agreement and our home insurance and our medical insurance and all the taxes just in case we get audited. And
I feel like it can't possibly be that large. I feel like I save a lot of my important documents digitally. This is actually one reason that I should back up more often.
Yeah.
And back up to the cloud, because right now I just back up to a hard drive. If everything got stolen, all my data would be gone.
Yeah, I don't know what, it's some of those documents could be, potentially, especially if you have to prove that you have insurance to an insurance agent that should already know that you have insurance because you give them money every month, that sort of deal.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that would be great, but that's not exactly how it works.
Right.
But I've definitely been trying to buckle down on creating more of those fun things. Not necessarily the quote adult things, but really the things I care about, and like trying to make stuff. I'm really big on making stuff because when you just consume things all day, you consume your Facebook feed, you consume some other articles other people wrote. In some ways, you're subject to that, and you're the opinions of other people are going to brush against you, and sometimes you don't have your own time to develop your own sense of like when you make stuff, you're like, I'm making part of me into a thing, and you do that a lot, and that develops you as a person, and it's good for other people because sometimes other people like to see your stuff. So I'm just trying to focus on that. I think it's cool that you have been too. I kind of I introduced you to Twitch, and you've taken that.
Yeah, I mean, like the recording software like that you've helped me set up is like really nice, and it's really easy to use, and that apparently is a big barrier. Like user ease is a big barrier for me to actually be doing stuff, because like I've done some video editing in the past. I have some YouTube videos out there that are from 2010 or 2008 and stuff like that, and it's like the easier it is, the more encouraged I am to actually make things and just record my experiences, what I'm usually doing every day, which is reading and playing video games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already playing them a lot, you might as well record and get other people, like you were saying earlier, it's like it helps people be entertained, and that's fun. And some of the content you've been producing isn't, it's not my cup of tea, but it might be somebody else's. But some of your content really is my cup of tea. Anyway, I think we're going to stop there for today. But I'm excited about season 2, if you will. Like, I wanna keep going. After we're done with our conversation here, I'm gonna go edit, and I'm gonna get that episode out and punch it out, and then I'm going to go work on my stuff.
Hopefully it don't have another collapse where you like lose material or you have to like you redo like the work.
God, that was so frustrating. It's fine. I'm gonna get through it. It's gonna be fine. If you're listening to this, go make something today.
Yes. Be productive.
Okay, thanks for listening, guys.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a Gravity Well podcast. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely day. We'll see you next time.